What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Restoration Rundown podcast, the podcast that's dedicated to you, the restoration and cleaning business owner. And boy, do we have a fun episode planned for you today, because today is going to be all about money. That's right. Getting paid is an area of contention in this industry, and quite a bit of construction and home service industries that deal with insurance companies. So today we're bringing on a guy that can help you with that, with his company. You guys have joined me in welcoming Mr. Josh Ehmke to the podcast from One Claim Solution, the founder and the general counsel of One Claim Solution. Josh, thanks for coming on, man.
That's right. Thanks for having me, Benjamin. Pretty pumped about it.
Yeah, that's great, man. So, for those of my fives of tens of listeners out there, and no offense if there's more than 10 of you, but I know you're not talking to each other, so you don't really know the numbers. But why don't you give me a little background about yourself, and how you fit into the restoration industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So right out of law school, I am an attorney. So out of law school, I started immediately getting into family law, did a lot of domestic violence, family law, worked for a nonprofit. That was heavy.
Yeah.
You couldn't shut that stuff off. Went to bed thinking about it, woke up thinking about it, and needed a change. It was starting to affect my family life. So took a position as general counsel to an air ambulance billing company doing large fixed wing air ambulance flights. Average claim size is $180,000, $200,000 in size, and
Wow.
And dealing with medical insurance, right?
Uh-huh.
And along comes Obamacare and some changes in the medical world, and some shifts there that kind of made me a little nervous. So had a buddy in this industry, in the restoration industry, that was having some problems with his company and collecting on some of their files. And he goes, "Look, Josh, I know you're doing insurance billing stuff. This isn't exactly the same as medical, but can you help me on some of these files?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, I'll help you." Sent out a couple letters and worked with some adjusters and got immediate results, right? And it made me step back a minute and just be like, what's going on in this industry, And so I started looking more and more into it, and it just there were not a whole lot of attorneys in this industry playing, and made me think, why not? And the answer was, a lot of these balances that these resto contractors are going after are too small to afford to go and hire an attorney, pay the $3,000 to $5,000 retainer in order to go and collect $3,000 to $5,000. It just didn't make a lot of sense. And I got that. And so, tried finding a creative way to overcome that economic barrier there for attorneys to get involved in this industry and help these restoration contractors out. They're just getting pummeled by these carriers who know how to play the game. And so that's kind of where the billing agency concept was born from, was, how can we bring some accountability to both sides? The more I got involved in the industry, I saw that, just as in every industry, there's bad actors on both sides of the equation.
Right.
You got some adjusters that are fantastic to work with, and they're really trying to do the right thing. They're looking out for the carrier, making sure there's no fraud, nothing like that going on. And they're great to work with. You've also got adjusters that are just mean. And their goal in life is to save the insurance companies as much money at all costs. And they're not willing to play by the rules or do the right thing there. And the same thing happens on the contractor side. You've got contractors that are out there trying to do the right thing, and you've got contractors that are out there trying to maximize their bills and inflate them with things that they're just not doing. And that creates a hardship for the other contractors that are trying to play by the rules, right?
Sure.
And so that accountability from both sides is important. And we're able to work with contractors as we get them onboarded through what we do. We go through their paperwork, their invoices, and I really work with them really closely on the front end to make sure that their documentation, their contract is what it needs to be, and the invoices are where they need to be for the contractor's purposes, and really set them up for success on the front end. So, and we have found that the carriers genuinely seem to appreciate that approach, and we work well for the most part with carriers. Like I said, you've got some adjusters out there that are just mean and they don't want to play nice anyways. Right. And that's okay. And that's why we have a job.
Yeah, you think the insurance companies are represented by probably got some pretty decent sized legal teams most of the time anyway. So you're fighting an uphill battle already as a contractor, I think, just to even
That's right. That's their best tool.
Yeah.
That's the strongest tool that they have is their legal team, for sure.
So you co-founded One Claim Solution. So
We
you're
did.
helping people get paid. So you're representing contractors, helping them remove the burden of dealing with these adjusters and carriers, right?
That's it, man. We
How?
started OCS in 2016.
Okay.
I've been in the industry since about 2014-ish.
Okay.
And started OCS in 2016, and it's been a wild ride. We've been fortunate enough to be on the cutting edge side of things. We've been involved with some case law. We're based out of Arizona. It's kind of where we started out of, and we've had 2 successful trips to the Court of Appeals around the assignment of benefits, also known as the assignment of rights.
Mhm.
It's a fantastic tool, really a game changer for any contractor. And that's my number one piece of advice is if your contract doesn't have that, make sure it does. It's a game changer for you. So we've been instrumental in some of that stuff. It's been pretty good. But yeah, that's the gist of what we do. Benjamin, you nailed it.
Yeah. So do you guys work with, what is your target, people that you work with? Are you working with like a single man, 2-man operations up to, Fortune 500 style companies? Or are you do you have a niche in there that you have the best results with?
Yeah, we have the whole spectrum, to be honest. We've got your mom and pop shops that are doing, 2 to 3 claims a week. And then we've got some contractors that are doing 80 claims a week with us. And so, yeah, we have the whole spectrum there. As far as a sweet spot goes, really what I like to say is the sweet spot is a contractor that knows what they are good at,
Mm-hmm.
and they focus on that. And they work well with us. They take the extra time that they get by offloading this stuff onto us, and the extra money, quite frankly, that they get because they offload it onto us. We're able to improve their cash flow, the turnaround time, the amount of overall receivables from the carriers, and the contractors that are able to take both of those things, the extra time, the extra money, and reinvest those into growing their company. Those are the ones that work with us the best.
Yeah.
They get it, and they love to see that growth. In fact, the one that I'm thinking of that's at about 80 claims a week, when they started with us, they were at about 10.
Wow.
And they've been able to take all that and just realize an extreme amount of growth in a few years. It's been super fun to be involved with that and watch that growth.
Yeah, that's incredible. And God bless you for working with that. That's a very large spectrum of different size contractors to work with. And I'm sure each one presents its own challenges
No doubt.
in that, but it is fun. I draw parallels between kind of what you do and what we do. And at the end of the day, we're offering a partnership with restoration or cleaning businesses in our world, to kind of offload some of that stuff. Because most contractors, most entrepreneurs, I talk about us as like plate spinners at the circus. You've got them all going at once, and it's really not sustainable to be able to scale. So, it seems like, you guys stepping in, being able to offload that amount of work, because I can only imagine, I know I have a site development contracting company, and I just know the time suck it is dealing with getting paid, dealing with all the little intricacies and nuances with that, and then trying to manage the day-to-day, and then trying to manage the marketing side of it. It's a lot. So, we love
no
having
doubt
companies like, OCS come on and talk about how they help. But like I mentioned off camera, one of the things that we want to do is we want to teach somebody something. So
love it.
What I like to do is I'd like to see, and I know we don't have a retainer with you, so no, listen, everybody, you're getting maybe some free legal knowledge here for your business. But one of the things I like to do is ask for, I'm sure especially with you dealing with a spectrum of different size companies, what are, maybe if you can identify 2 or 3 very common mistakes that restoration contractors are making that put them behind the 8 ball when they're going to get paid. And then on the other side of that, maybe offer up maybe some solutions that they can take action with right now to kind of mitigate that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And first off, obviously, we want to try to get the contractor's business, but even right alongside that is helping contractors out, right?
Sure.
We're passionate about the industry. We're passionate about making change and helping these contractors. And some contractors, it's hard for them to let go of their ARs like that.
Yeah.
That's the lifeblood of the company, and that's a huge leap of faith. And so that said, happy to share some information that that we absolutely recommend, whether you use OCS or not. These are some things that contractors should really be looking at. Number one, like I said earlier, the assignment of benefits, the assignment of rights. Not every state has it. I know Oregon, Texas, Florida's a little iffy now.
That's where we're at. I know that's a big, it was a big thing a couple of years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, it was. But it really is a game changer. It allows you to be able to legally step into the shoes of the policyholder and negotiate with the insurance carrier.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have the ability to legally negotiate your own claims, that's a very strong position of power to come from. And so, number one, assignment of benefits, got to be in there. The second thing, there's a lot of talk in the industry about Xactimate. In fact, that was one of the things that absolutely intrigued me when I first got involved in the industry. Was I heard about it, and coming from the medical world, a medical billing world, there was a software similar to that was artificially driving prices down in the medical billing world, and it was a huge class action that came about against that software program. So when I heard about Xactimate, my ears kind of perked up, and what is this? And through my experience in the industry, I've come to really like Xactimate. It's a fabulous tool, but it needs to be used correctly. And that's where the biggest shortfall is in the industry for restoration contractors. Is you even get these contractors that say they know Xactimate, they've worked with it for years and they're familiar with it, but when you actually go out and take a poll on how many of these contractors have been trained correctly in Xactimate and its use, that number is very, very small. And so when contractors are getting mad at these carriers saying, "Oh, they force Xactimate pricing on us," and it's a huge struggle. Yes, carriers are forcing Xactimate pricing on people, but do contractors know how to upload their customized prices in order to affect and change these prices, right? And the answer to that is most of them don't, at least not enough of them to make any real difference. So Xactimate, that's the second thing. Xactimate's a great tool. Know how to use it. And that's something that we work with contractors on is to make sure that, they're setting up their invoices the right way on the front end.
Yeah. I mean, that only helps getting paid at the end anyways, having that stuff in order, because you're not going back. And we've had a few guests on, and I found it kind of funny how many people hate versus love Xactimate. And it typically, what I find interesting is typically boils down to people just not knowing how to use it properly.
That's right.
And that's been the consensus with everybody I've talked to, whether they were against it or not. I've had guests on that have their own type of software, but they just always boils down to educating yourself on the software and making sure you're doing things properly, which is another huge value I'm sure you guys bring to the table when you're working with somebody.
No, it's important to make sure that invoice is built correctly. I know there's a lot of different programs out there, and I don't know the rules on giving shameless plugs for companies I have no involvement with. But I know Actionable Insights is out there doing some great things with Xactimate right now. Again, no affiliation or involvement with them. I just really like what they're doing. It makes basically any user of Xactimate almost an expert.
If any of those two companies are listening, we would like some promotional consideration for Josh mentioning it,
or just cut that out altogether.
Yeah, right. We don't edit stuff, so you're in there like that. We could beep it out. No, I think we fly under the radar with this.
Yeah, but the point is, know the program. That's what you're using, whether it's Xactimate or QuickBooks or Excel. I don't care. Just know what you're using and use it right. Use it correctly. So that would be number two. Number three thing would be the documentation of the project as a whole. Whether it's OCS stepping in to justify those charges and work with the carriers, or whether it's these contractors keeping it in-house and doing it, you've got to have the correct job documentation.
Right.
For the most part, an adjuster is trying to do their job, and that's document their file to justify the amounts that they are paying. Again, you have a handful of adjusters out there that are just mean, and they don't care what you say or how you justify or document the job. They're going to pay what they're going to pay, and probably try to get you kicked off the job all at the same time. But control what you can control. One of the things that absolutely changed my life was learning that concept. Focus on that area of control, that circle of control that you have influence over, and do that correctly. Do that well, and you'd be surprised at the results that you get. So job documentation, whether it's from photos, from dry logs, or detailed explanations of what was done. Um, for example, if you had to add in extra labor hours on an Xactimate invoice, well, put the F9 note in there that explains why.
Yeah.
Don't just throw the hours in there and say, oh, well, we had to, so pay it. Well, explain it.
Yeah.
And as simple as that sounds, contractors just don't like to do that for the most part. They'll just build the invoice and not really support it with the justifications that are needed there. And so that's something that we help contractors out with too, is we make sure they've got the necessary documentation to really give them the best chance of collecting the most amount possible on these invoices.
Yep.
I would say those are the top three things, Benjamin, is the AOB, using Xactimate correctly, and documenting your job to support what you did. And that's the name of the game.
That's really awesome. I'm glad you took the time to mention those three things. And there was a couple other things that we talked about, in the questionnaire before you guys came on, to kind of see how, you guys actually step in and help, right? We know that these are the issues. A couple of the other pain points being, managing cash flow, getting paid is a huge part of it, and just dealing with the carriers. And that's something that you guys can step in and help pretty much, sounds like anybody that has a restoration business that has their ducks in a row to do that. Can you talk a little bit more about your process with one claim? Maybe some of the results that you guys see consistently based off those three pain points that they have, and outside of the time that you're offloading off of these guys or ladies plates to allow them to go deal with the day to day. Are there any other things that one claim does to step in to really help out this industry a lot?
Outside of just the typical billing and working with the carriers to receive money and increase, the amount of cash flow that these contractors are getting and reduce the amount of time it takes to get that. We're trying to work with different organizations in the industry to create that change. One of the ways that we have been successful doing, like I said earlier, is through the court system. As an attorney, I've been able to bring some accountability to the carriers, and really hold their feet to the fire, I guess, in ways that hasn't really been done before because of the small balances, right? It's just not justifiable to these contractors to go after these small balances. And sometimes it's still not justifiable to go after a small balance depending on what happened with the job. But you've got to be able to show the carrier that you're willing to go to those distances in order to be paid for what you've done. And that's something that we've been really successful in, is being able to provide that bite behind just the bark. RAA has a lot of these position statements out there that are fabulous and absolutely correct. But how do you enforce those? You can get them to that adjuster, but if the adjuster doesn't care, doesn't matter. To get it to the supervisor, then the supervisor, and keep going. But at the end of the day, the carrier gets to decide if they're going to pay it or not, whether it's justifiable or not. And so you've got to be able to bring that accountability somehow. And that's really what we're after. And the carriers understand that. And we try to work through that process with them. So I think that's ultimately, at the end of the day, Benjamin, where real change is going to be made in this industry, is through that accountability process of really holding these carriers' feet to the fire to make them pay what's reasonable to be paid. It's not about being egregious. It's not about price gouging. It's not about, hey, I'm going to charge $90 a day for an air mover because I want to. It's getting paid what you reasonably should be paid. And that doesn't always mean the same price as the program vendors that are doing the job at a discounted price in order to get free work from the carrier. They can't force that pricing and pricing structure on someone who's not in that relationship with them, even though they try to every day. We know that. That's where the real change is going to be made, is just proving to them that, it's not always economical to do that.
Sure. Sure. Now, speaking of changes, I mean, I love the fact that you guys are out there actually, in the court systems fighting. Any changes you might see coming down the pipeline that might be affecting any of this type, any of the things that we've talked about? Billing, AOB,
Oh
good or bad
man.
changes, I guess. Just to give anybody a heads up if you see anything coming or something you guys might be working on.
I would tell every contractor out there, try to keep your ear to the ground on, especially with the assignment of benefits issue. The carriers know how important that is.
Yeah.
They would rather deal with their policyholder who knows nothing about water mitigation or any of this restoration process than they would with the service provider that knows everything about it, right?
Right.
It's easier for them to pay less when they're just dealing with the policyholder. So they hate the assignment, absolutely hate it.
Right.
For the most part. We've had our exceptions there where the contract or the insurance companies are just like, man, we just love dealing with you guys. It just makes our life so much easier, right? Knowing someone's going to be there to answer the phones. But for the most part, it's the assignment there, and a lot of them just don't like it. So keep your ears to the ground out there to see what's going on at your local legislatures. They frequently, the carriers will get their lobbyists in there at the 11th hour to try to sneak something in, and try to affect the assignment in that way. So pay attention to that. That's important for this industry. Outside of that, there's always the silver bullet that'll kill any industry or any company, and that's what we're ever mindful of, right? And trying to figure out. But right now, I'd say the biggest issue is that assignment of benefits and make sure it's being protected.
No,
And
that's great.
enforced.
That's great. So, I mean, I love what you guys do. I think feel very strongly that everybody should be offloading this type of stuff. Not just because you're offloading the time, but I think the relationships that you've already built with the carriers, with the adjusters, goes a long way. And I'm sure that you get much better results than somebody dealing with things on their own in most cases.
Well, I appreciate that. And that is something that I'm glad you brought up again, Benjamin, because that is something we work hard to do, is build those relationships with the carriers. Look, we can be hostile and go to a lawsuit and litigation on every single one of these claims every single time in order to try to collect every single penny and dime, right?
Yeah.
But is that really the best course of action? If I am a jerk to an adjuster today for you because he's not paying something and I just treat him like a criminal and I put him down and treat him like an idiot, right? What happens tomorrow when I come across that same adjuster for another contractor on another claim? He's still going to have a bitter taste in his mouth about me and about what we've done. And so the relationship by nature is adversarial. We're trying to collect money. They're trying to pay as little as possible.
Yep.
Adversarial by nature. That doesn't mean that you have to be adversarial in your process. And so that's something we strive hard to do, is build those relationships. And we've been fortunate enough to do that with several of the larger carriers, to where it's a pretty painless process now. We understand each other, how we work, and there's a few carriers where we haven't had to escalate a file against those carriers in a couple of years.
Wow.
We just work that well with them, and our goal is to be able to do that across the board with all carriers eventually. But when we're nice and we play nice, but also bring the accountability and don't back down, that's where we'll make the progress and help the contractors out the most.
Yeah, that's really good, man. I love everything, like I said before, that you have to say. I'm a big believer in what you guys do. I just see it from the marketing side, how much time is put into what you're talking about, dealing with the carriers, and not many people have a smile on their face when they're talking about dealing with insurance or billing and stuff like that. So, it only makes sense, to talk. And speaking of which, if you guys are listening to this, Josh and the team have been gracious enough to offer a free consultation, just have a conversation with you about your business and what they may be able to bring to the table for you to help you get paid better and manage your cash flow. Josh, how do we get in touch with you?
Well, our website is oneclaimsolution.com. It's all spelled out, all one word, oneclaimsolution.com. That's the best way to reach us.
And you guys are active on social media, I'm assuming, as well?
We are. We haven't been super active in putting our image out there up until the last 6 months or so, and finally have gotten to a place where we're ready to
Yeah.
take that next step, in growth, and we've got our systems in place to be able to handle the growth, and it's been amazing, the response that we've gotten from the industry nationwide.
Sure.
It's been fun. All of our growth up until this point has been purely just, hey, we're using these guys, they're killing it for us, you guys should
Yeah.
use them too. Even though you're our competitor and we hate you, you should probably use them, type of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and we've had a good run. So that's how people should get a hold of us on that. And like Benjamin said, you got questions, call in. This is something we're passionate about. We're more than willing to give you some pointers here and there.
Gosh, I really appreciate you coming on. I mean, I think that, you've shared a lot about your company. It was really cool hearing about your background. I'd love to have you back on and dive into some of this stuff a little deeper
Let's go.
down the road. Yeah, man, I love it having these conversations. It sounds like you guys are doing good things, and congratulations on your success. I mean, you've got quite a few years in this industry. You guys are breaking through, came across our radar. Dan reached out to us. So it's been really cool to get to know what you do and how you help everybody. And listen, I implore you guys, check out their website, oneclaimsolution.com. I'm going to go ahead and throw their phone number up here so you guys can see that too, in case, so you have no excuses not to get in touch with them and start getting your billing and stuff in order, because it's important. And everybody listening to this, I'm sure has dealt with this at one point or another. You're as good as you may be dealing with the carriers, you're probably not as equipped to deal with them as Josh and his team at One Claim Solution. So Josh, I appreciate your time having you on. We're looking forward to talking to you again soon.
Absolutely, Benjamin. Appreciate what you're doing for the industry as well, man. It's fabulous.
Thanks, bro.
All right.
All right, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.